Hello and how's everyone doing today? Welcome to the channel. If you're new, if you're returning viewer, I'm glad to have you back and welcome to another episode of Justin Talks Games. It's been a long time since I've done this, but with the 4 current remakes done and out of the way now, because not too long ago we got the VR update for Resident Evil 4. Um, Unfortunately, I haven't been able to try it. I don't have VR for my PS5. It's quite expensive. Also, don't forget to grab your drinks. I don't have any snacks, so you know. Um, so, like I said, with that, and the games out of the way, I thought I would talk about each for the remakes and point out good things, bad things. Just have a general discussion about them. And then, I'm going to tell you guys my favorite remake near the end of the video. So, with that being said, let's start with the Resident Evil 1 remake that is right there. It came out in 2002 on the GameCube, and then I think I can't remember when it was ported to the PS3, 4, and 5. Um, but so the Resident Evil 4 or Resident Evil 1 remake came out in 2002. It was exclusive to the GameCube for a very long time until it got ported to the PlayStation 3 and the Wii as well. It came out on the Wii as well. It was definitely ahead of its time. Visually, it looked very, very nice. The gameplay was similar to the original, but it was improvised a little bit. It was improved a little bit. New mechanics and stuff, like being able to use the kerosene to burn zombies, which you can burn up to, I think, 2 or 3 zombies at once, which is, really good. Because if you don't, what happens is that they actually get up, they change into Crimson Heads, and they will literally run and chase after you, and they can be quite dangerous. In terms of visual designs of the mansion, it's very, very similar actually to the original. They did an amazing job in terms of that. You can pretty much play the mansion segments side by side with the original. If you were to have a screen on the original and then have a screen with the remake, if you were to play them side by side, with the exception of a few different rooms that were added and stuff like that, of course, but the core general layout of the mansion is pretty much the same. They did an amazing job with that. There are a few new areas added, a couple new rooms added. The most notable ones would be the courtyard outside. You go outside twice in this game. And this isn't including like the back and forth in the main courtyard. There's actually a area to go first. You go up the stairs in the main hall, and there's a door where a painting is, and you go through the door, and it takes you to an underground cemetery thing. You put these masks in and stuff. I don't want to say too much because I know there's actually quite a few people, newer players who are actually playing the original games and the remakes and stuff. I've noticed within the last couple of months, there's been a lot new players, and it makes me happy to see that. So I don't want to say too much. So there's that. Another thing too is there's a basement area too that they've added underneath the main hall and the cabin. Yeah, the log cabin with Lisa Trevor. That's another new one too. But aside from that, you can pretty much play them side by side, which is very good. Um, there are some callbacks as well. So a good example is they have this. If you guys remember in the original, for those of you who have played or watched the original one, 96 one, um, there to be able to get into the courtyard, you would need these golden emblems. There was like a moon, a sun, wind, and it's one more. There's four. I can't remember what the last one is offhand. It's been a little while. Um, Whereas in the remake, you just need this stone and metal object. You combine them together to make the umbrella logo, and you place that metal thing into the same spot where you would put the emblems in the original one, and that unlocks the door to go to the courtyard. Um, but in the remake, this is completely optional, by the way, but the way you get the Magnum is you actually collect the four golden, emblems um, that were in the original, and you put them into a gravestone. You find one in the mansion, and I believe I could be wrong because it's been a while since I played the remake, but I think it's in the room where you find Barry reading the note. He's not always in there. The remake does have some alternate scenes and stuff too. That like it depends on what you do for certain things to pop out sometimes. It's the room where you collect the butterfly and stuff like that. I could be wrong though, but for some reason that room screams that for me. Again, I could be wrong, but either way, you do collect one of the golden emblems in the mansion somewhere, and then you would take them out to the courtyard where you go um, to the cabin. On your way to the cabin, you actually see there's a grave, like a what do you call it? It's like a small little cemetery, and you put the emblem in the one slot, and then it turns over, and there's three, and then you place this. You take them, and then you would place them in the proper order and stuff, and then you would get the Magnum. It's pretty cool. So it's taking older puzzle elements and almost like refurbishing them and turning them, using them for something new but older elements, and it's really cool. Other than that, there's not a huge difference. You still have the underground and you have the lab and all that. So it's very, very similar to the original, which is quite good. If we move on to Resident Evil 2 Remake, um, visually, obviously, it was astounding when everybody first seen it. Um, in terms of the sound design, oh my god, the sound design is amazing. Um, just the background noise and stuff, and like I will admit that the music is non-existent. Okay, yeah, you have your boss music, and you have little, your cutscene music and stuff like that. Um, but other than that, the game is very, very quiet, very silent, and I think the reason for that is because you can buy the original soundtrack um, for the game, and you can play that in the background. And I think that's actually one of in my opinion, I think that's one of the reasons why they made the game silent, so you could use that. I could be wrong, but the game is very, very quiet. But behind, but aside from that, you're walking down this hallway. There's water dripping. You can hear the water dripping. You can hear the faint shuffle sounds of zombies walking or just standing. Um, Especially like when the tyrant starts walking around the police station. He could be on the other side of the police station, and you can hear his footsteps as he's walking around. And like I said, aside from the music, the sound design in that game is it's top notch. It's one of the best um, sound designs that I've ever, you know, played in a game. Um, Now, when it comes to content, It's good. Like, I'm not gonna lie, Resident Evil 2 is very good, and I really, really did enjoy it. But it is missing. It is missing a good amount of stuff. Um, there's technically 4 scenarios in Resident Evil 2. If you play the 1998 one, there's Claire A, Leon B, and there's also Leon A, Claire B. Now there's 4, and they're interchangeable. Um, but each one is different. I mean, you go to the same places and stuff, but it is variable. So, like, like you go to the lab, right? But there's some areas in the lab that you can't go to in the first scenario. But if you do a second scenario, you can go there. A good example of this is you're riding the elevator down. Um, you go down, but in the second scenario, you would get in the same elevator and it would go down and it breaks down halfway. So you'd have to climb out and you have a whole other area to explore because you have to get back to where you were, but you have to do this a different way. Um, there's also the zapping system, which was really cool, and I wish they were going to bring that back, but they didn't. And what that is is basically whatever one character does affects the other. Um, so example for this, you go, for the original one, you go into the armory and say there's there's machine gun, ammo, and there's a backpack. That gives you extra space. Now, say you decide to take the machine gun, you take the ammo, and take the backpack. Um, when you play scenario B with whatever character, and you go there and you go into the locker, there's going to be nothing in that locker because Leon has it or Claire has it, whoever you played as. The previous character took everything. Now, if say you took the backpack but you left the machine gun and the ammo, well, you go there with the second scenario character and you would see the machine gun and the ammo there. Um, it's an alternate cutscenes and stuff as well. Like I said, it all depends on how you play and what you do. The remake of Resident Evil 2 did not have that. It's scenario A and B where essentially cut and paste, with the exception of like very little things. So example, we'll do Leon A and then or Leon A and then Leon B. So we'll for the differences and stuff. Actually, no, we'll do them like so. I guess I should start off by saying that each character does have their own storyline, regardless. So, like, obviously, those who play the original and play the remake, they know that Ada is strictly part of Leon's story, and Sherry's parts is strictly part of Claire's parts. So those don't really change a whole bunch between the two scenarios. But the biggest changes in the remake between the two scenarios, or lack of, I should say, because in the originals, like I said, you go to different places, different dialogues where you meet up and stuff. And even, so say you play Leon A and Claire B, right? You would meet Claire and have that conversation, but with Claire, you would go an opposite way to get to wherever Leon was or whatever, and you would talk. So, example, where they meet in the STARS office, you would obviously play with Leon. He gets there first. He gets the stuff, whatever, and then Claire comes in, right? So when you play as Claire, by the time you get to the STARS office, Leon's already there. So you open the door, and then boom, that whole cutscene plays out. Leon gives you the diary, you read it, and that's the end of that. So, you get to see the opposite side of everything, which was really good. But like I said, so in the remake, The only real differences for the A and Bs are essentially how you start the game and when the tyrant starts chasing you. Um, and that's really about it, honestly. Um, because once you get to, like, example for Leon, like, once you get to the sewers, and then to the lab, it's literally cut and paste. It's the exact same thing. Um, which the same thing for Claire too. Like once you hit the sewers, um, it's pretty much the same of her other one too, with the exception of the ending cutscene too. Like that's so the start and the ending are pretty much the biggest differences for the second scenario. Um, where so like the second scenario ending would be you would actually fight the fifth form of Birkin. Whereas in the A scenario, you get on the train and the cutscene plays and it ends and all that. And then after that, it shows just a little cutscene of Birkin coming and, screen goes black. So essentially you'd have to play the second scenario to get that ending. So it's not a huge difference um, between the two scenarios, really, which is really disappointing. Um, in terms out of the layout of the police station compared to the original, um, more or less it's the same, but they barricaded a lot of places, so you have to find a new way around. Um, so, like a good example of this would be if you go the left, yeah, left, and you go into the waiting room, and then you go down the hall. Now, in the original one, you could go in the hallway, the liquor hallway, I would call it. You keep going and run. You go around the thing, um, where the conference is. You would go around there, and you could keep going straight all the way, and then you'd open the door, and you'd end up at the hallway, where you could go all the way up the stairs. Now, in the remake, you can't go all the way because they have it blocked off. You have to go through the conference and jump through the window until you unlock the door to originally where you find Marvin in the original, when they changed that too, which is fine. Like, that's cool that they changed it up a bit, finding Marvin and stuff. He's in the main hall now, which I don't have a problem with that. But in the remake, that's the area where you end up at. Um, yeah, like I said, it's not too much of a difference except for obstacles. In terms of the layout of the mansion or the police station, I mean, puzzles. There's different lots of different puzzles in this one. Um, yeah, they did do a really good job. There's one big enemy design I was disappointed with though, and that was the tyrant's final form. Um, when his coat and stuff burns off and whatever, he just the coat stays in one part, so he still has both his arms and he's coming after you. In the original one, both his arms get destroyed and he gets really big claws and stuff, and he becomes kind of similar to the tyrant of Resident Evil 1. Like, kind of similar to that. Well, actually, no, I'd say closer to the tyrant of Resident Evil 0. But still, that design is still superior to the remake version. And I really wish that the flash rocket launcher, that's the one that you unlocked. I wish you could unlock that one, but it wasn't. It was like this tube looking thing. Leon does get to use the flash rocket launcher um, because Ada drops it down near the end. And then you never see it again, which kind of sucks. I was personally hoping to be able to use that rocket launcher instead as the unlockable. But aside from those things, I did enjoy Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's definitely up there. It's definitely very, very good. I know, it seems like I had a whole bunch of criticisms for it, but overall, it was very good. Um, so now moving on to Resident Evil 3 Remake. Oh man, I'm so disappointed in that game. Um, I did like the PS PSTD or however the hell you say it. um, PTSD. She has from Resident Evil 1. I thought that was an amazing addition, and I really wish that they ran with that and they pushed that more. Um, but you see it for like 2 minutes, and then it's almost like she completely forgets about it and never, it's like, yeah, whatever, you know. So that was a really missed opportunity that, you know, really went nowhere. Um, the second was Nemesis design. I didn't really like all that much. I understand where they're coming from to make it more in line with the Resident Evil 2 remake, the Tyrant, because Nemesis realistically is a um, T102 Tyrant with the Nemesis parasite in him. So visually, he does look probably more lore accurate, I would assume. Um, but it's just I didn't really like his design. It's it's a tyrant face that's literally just twisted up. Again, that's probably how lore wise he would look, but I prefer the original design. Um, the amount of cut content in that game is I don't know. I don't know. There's like probably like between 60 to 70% of that game cut. Um, because you have, Uptown, which you're there for the beginning of the game, and that's it. The downtown, it's very, I can't think of the word, um, straightforward. You go from one point to another point, and that's it. Um, the clock tower is non-existent. You fight, you know, like Nemesis out front. They turned him into like some liquor dog. I think that was a really, really stupid decision too. Um, I didn't like that design. But anyways, so you have the most of Uptown's gone. Almost all of downtown's gone. Um, the like I said, the clock tower is non-existent. Raccoon City Park's gone. The what do you call it? The cemetery's gone. What else? The news press hall thing that's gone. The gas station is gone. I was only in a cutscene for like 3 seconds. Um, what else? The pharmacy is gone. Um, the restaurant is there, but it's kind of changed more into almost like a donut shop now. Um, what else? Um, oh, that cabin in the cemetery. The whole cemetery's gone. The cabin's gone. dead factory was replaced with basically a pretty much a cut and paste lab of Resident Evil 2 remake, just flipped colors instead of being like white and I can't remember what colors the labs were, like white and red or something like that. They flipped them; they're like white and yellow. Um, the the hospitals changed a bit too. Um, you could no longer go to the basement. You could only go to the main floor, and then there was the main floor, and then you could go up a set of stairs to the second floor. Um, it was very small. The hospital was very small, and it had the opportunity to be amazing. I would love to explore a hospital. The concept art for it was absolutely amazing. You know, it showed empty halls with blood, single zombie standing in front of a wall, facing the wall, and all that. Like there is so much potential. Oh my god. Um, it was just I don't know. Looking at the concept art and then looking at the main game, it's just like man, so many of these things should have went into the game, um, but it just didn't. Um, the acid fight was just I was it's friggin' it's frustrating, especially in higher difficulties. It's frustrating, and it's literally like, oh no, he's up in the top because it's like the cylinder round area, and you got to fight him, and then you got to fight zombies too, which doesn't make sense. um, just the whole fight is just ridiculous, and the final fight is literally it's a wall monster, you know. You know, blob wall monster attaches himself, and you hit the glowing colors, and there you go. He's dead now. Um, but the only thing they did change with it was shoot the bubbles, make him hurt. He drops down. You push these batteries in. You shoot him with the railgun, and you know he dies after a while. The on the hardest difficulty. This is the one thing I'm going to say. Last thing I'm going to really say. Like negative about 3 is the hardest difficulty. While it was difficult, it was doable up until you got to Nemesis at the end. Because then it basically went like from 1 to 1 million real fast, just like that. Um, if you didn't have the special stars manual that you could buy from the in-game shop using the points, he was near impossible. Um, because he brings his hands down and he slams. So essentially, he would bring his hand up, he would slam, and then he would get almost all he would get all the way up, and then he'd slam again. So it'd be like up and then boom, 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 literally. And I wish I was exaggerating, but it's very close representation actually. Um, and if he hit you one time, you staggered, and you literally have no chance to, you know, you wouldn't even come out of the animation, and you would just die because he would come and hit you again. Um, you literally had to be perfect. Um, so there's a difference between being hard and then just being blatantly unfair. And the Inferno Nemesis difficulty was definitely unfair because the rest of the game was doable. I loved Inferno mode. It was definitely frustrating at parts, but it was fair. But Nemesis's fight probably took me a couple of days. It took me a couple of days to do because I remember I took a break and now it's just, ugh. But moving on to the good things that I did like about Resident Evil 3, the very few things. Um, Visually, it looked really good. Visually, it looked really nice. Jill looked nice. The characters, the environments, everything looked really good. It played very smoothly too. Very smoothly it played. I didn't have any issues. Very stable game. I never had any crashes or bugs or anything the entire. And I put almost 200 hours into Resident Evil 3. Believe it or not, as much as it wasn't my favorite. I remember I 100%ed that game because my whole plan was, okay, well, I'll do it on the channel. I'll 100% it on my own, and then I won't have to really bother with it anymore. And I did that. Um, and out of the whole entire time that I played 3, I'd never encountered any glitches or anything. And it played nice and smooth. Um, you know, so from a software perspective and stuff, gameplay perspective, all that, it was quite. It did play, did run and play quite well. So I will give it that for sure. And then when the PS5 version came out, I played through it on that, and same thing, no bugs or anything. It played quite through. Um, and ray tracing looked absolutely amazing on Resident Evil 3. I'll give it that too. Um, Being able to see yourself in the reflections of like the posters and stuff in the subway and everything looked so good. So visually, I'll definitely give it a really high thumbs up, and the gameplay, again, thumbs up, but everything else, thumb down. Resident Evil 4 remake. Okay, let's get into this, boys and girls. Um, the original Resident Evil 4 was not my favorite. I did put a hell of a lot of time into it. I did play it a lot. Um, but it wasn't my favorite by any means. I a lot of the time was with Mercenaries mode because I really enjoyed Mercenaries on that. Oh, that's another thing. Going back to Resident Evil 3 for a second, the remake Resident Evil 3. There was no extra modes on that game. Um, and Resident Evil 3 was the original Mercenaries mode. Resident Evil Mercenaries mode, Operation Mad Jackal, with an unlockable mode on the PS1 version. Original Resident Evil 3 was called the Mercenaries Operation Mad Jackal, where you played as 4 characters. You played as Carlos, Mikhail, Nikolai, and someone else. I can't remember. Um, and you had to run around the city. The whole entire Raccoon City was open, and it was a time limit. Um, and you had to run around town. You had to save people, and you had to get to a certain point before the time ran out. And killing enemies and stuff would add to the timer. Um, because you had like a bomb inside you or something. I can't remember the storyline for it, but basically, it's a non-canon story. It's not a part of the story. Like, and you would earn money, and by earning this money, you would actually buy unlimited machine gun, unlimited rocket launcher, blah blah blah, for the main game. Like that's how they did it, which was really cool. But in the remake of Resident Evil 3, there was no mercenaries. They added an item shop, and the challenges you did in the main game is how you would, unlock stuff for the main game. Now, the item shop and the challenges is not bad on its own. I think it's really cool. They still should have had mercenaries mode. Because they did going back to Resident Evil 4 remake, talking about the item shop and challenges and stuff, they had that as well in Resident Evil 4 remake. You have in-game challenges that you would do. You would earn CP, which I'm assuming it stands for challenge points. I don't know what it stands for. But you would use these points to unlock in-game like accessories or weapons or concept art, player models, stuff like that. Really cool stuff like that, and outfits as well. So they did the same thing, and it's really cool. But as I was saying earlier, the original Resident Evil 4 was not my favorite, and because I'm a big fan of the originals, so like from Zero to like Veronica, and Veronica's a really big one, favorite of mine too. Um, so 4 was a very big departure, a very big change. Um, to action and all that. It was, so different than the others. And had very little to do with Resident Evil as a whole. You start the game and it says Umbrella was destroyed, essentially, with just a lot more words. Umbrella's destroyed and gone now. Um, and then completely moves on. There's parasites and all that, and there's no ties to the original games. Now, each game does have its own singular story, right? That's not connected. Um, you know, so like Resident Evil 2 stories, right, aren't connected to Resident Evil 1. But overall, right, you still have that one thing that binds them together. Like, you still have Umbrella. Um, you have William Birkin, who's mentioned in the original Resident Evil 1. Um, in, I think, one or two files. Um, you know, um, and in the original Resident Evil 2, there's a file that talks about Wesker, right? So the main story of each game may not be directly tied to the previous game. It still has connections to one another. But 4 didn't have any of that, with the exception of Leon. Leon the character, but other than that, there was no bindings to have it connected to the other games. You could play Resident Evil 4 and not play any other Resident Evil game, and you wouldn't know anything. You wouldn't be confused. You wouldn't be like, you know. Um, Meanwhile, if you play Resident Evil 2, it's like, what's the T virus? Who is this Wesker guy in the note? Who's Chris? Who's Jill? Like, all these questions and stuff. But Resident Evil 4 was completely cut off from all the other games. Until Resident Evil 5 came along and, basically binded them all together again. But yeah, that's one of the biggest things I didn't like about 4, is that there were no connections or anything like that. I wish that did change in the remake. Um, the remake of Resident Evil 4, I really loved it, honestly. I 100% prefer that one over the original. I know a lot of people still prefer the original over the remake, and that's completely fine. But, for me, I prefer the remake over the original 4. Um, the gameplay is better, the environments are better. You know, I will admit that the dialogue is lacking in the remake of 4. The banter between characters isn't there. Um, you know, so I'll give it that. And then the voice actors, like themselves, the voices, like nothing against the voice actors themselves, but just the voices that they chose for characters weren't great. Like Krauser, he doesn't. In the original one, he sounded older, more experienced, and stuff like that. Whereas in the remake, he just comes across as this young, younger guy who's just kind of cocky, you know, trying to give off this rough voice that, almost sounds like he's trying too hard. Whereas in the original one, I really liked him, but in the remake, he's okay. Um, I really wish they gave Sadler more screen time. You see him like maybe two, not including Separate Ways, so just the main game. I want to say maybe two, three times tops. Whereas in the original one, you would see him maybe 4 or 5 times, a couple more times and stuff. Um, and that's about it. But the environments look beautiful. The castle looks amazing. Um, the island, they did a good job. The island was definitely the weakest part, in my opinion, of the original ones, and they did a great job. The lab is a million times better. I thought the lab in the original was terrible. Um, but the remake lab is so much better. And then with Separate Ways, they added Even more. They added another lab section, which it's just like chef's kiss. It's so much better. Um, I'm not gonna spoil anything for Separate Ways because I know some people haven't played it yet. But the inclusion of Wesker and what they did threw me off at first, and then whatever it was well, I can't really say much. Um, they did a really good job for him, and that they built him in a more grounded way, but that still led him to Resident Evil 5, um, especially near the end. Um, I can't, like I said, I'm not going to say much, but the way they went about him, especially near the end, um, he still had his Resident Evil 5 ideals, but he wasn't like this comic book villain, crazy, over the top guy. He was more grounded, but he still had those ideals and stuff. They did a much better job with him in this. Um, if they were to do a remake of Resident Evil 5, I know this is going to be a hot take, as people call it. I hope they get rid of his black coat and put him in something a little more realistic. Because, like, you're in Africa, you're in the desert, it's super hot. Why are you wearing this long black coat? Like, yeah, it looks cool, right? But, you know, it's super hot. That and it would kind of restrict his movement. He goes super fast. You're wearing this long coat. You could trip over it, realistically. And it would kind of restrict his movements a little bit. Um, so I hope they kind of do what they did in the remake of 4. They put him in something similar to his Stars outfit, which was kind of cool. Um, but yeah, those are my thoughts on the 4 game. My thoughts and opinions on the 4 games. Um, they all have their goods, and a few of them have their downs. Um, but you guys are probably waiting, because this video is pretty long. You guys are probably waiting to find out which Resident Evil remake is my favorite out of all of them. Newer fans of my channel are probably thinking, oh, well, it's going to be Resident Evil 4. It's the one that just came out. It's the biggest game that everybody's talking about it. People who've been here for a little while may say, oh, well, it's Resident Evil 2, because his favorite Resident Evil is the original Resident Evil 2. But, drum roll, my favorite remake is actually the Resident Evil 1 remake, believe it or not. There are no negatives to that game. Honestly, did you, when I talked about Resident Evil 1 remake, did you catch that? I didn't say anything negative about it. I pointed out that everything was pretty much the same, and they added things. Whereas in the remake of 2, while yes, the police station is, I don't want to say one for one, but because they did add they did add a lot of extra to the 3rd floor of the police station and stuff, or whatever. So there are additions to it, and meanwhile, it is, very close, and it's good. It's top notch. I honestly, 2 is my favorite, or my second favorite. It honestly goes, if I had to choose, it would go 1, then it would go 2 and 4, then 3. I think 2 and 4 are kind of on the same level, and then 3 is behind. But yeah, like I said, in the other ones, from 2 to 4, such and such is missing, and this and that. I would say some negative things, but I would also say positive things. If you noticed when I was talking about the remake of 1, I didn't state anything negative. You could literally, it's pretty much a 1-for-1 recreation of the first game, with the exception of some things that were added. Nothing was taken out of that game. it is essentially the perfect remake. Every room from the original is there. Every weapon is there. They also added a weapon too, the self-defense handgun. Um, Everything's there except they added stuff. You have the whole mansion, you have the underground, you have the lab sections, and then you have the added areas, which are, one of the hallways in the mansion. There's an extra hallway in the mansion. There's that outside area that leads into the underground cemetery. You have that underground area underneath the main hall of the mansion. You have Lisa Trevor's cabin. You have all these things added, but nothing was removed. Yes, some of the puzzles are a little bit different, but again, like I said about um, the emblem puzzle, yes, that was changed, but the emblems are in the game and they were repurposed to use to get the Magnum now. So essentially, yes, some things are a little flipped around and whatever, but everything is still there. The picture puzzle with change to stained glass windows picture or stained glass window puzzle, but essentially stained glass window have a design, so technically it's still a picture. So realistically, that puzzle's still there. You still have to push them in the proper order to get the last picture to be, to get everything to light up properly. Whereas, like in the original one, it was like the circle of life, and you have to push them all in a certain order. Same thing, push the button, and and the picture would drop. But same thing, you push these in the proper order, and it lights up the thing properly, and then the wall lifts up, and you grab the mask instead of the emblem. So essentially, it's different, but it's the same. Like the same concept is there, um, and that's what I mean. Um, if I had to say one negative thing about it, and it wouldn't even be the GameCube version actually, um, it'd be about the ports from like the PS2 even to the PS4 and 5. I'm not sure about the Xbox ones because I haven't played the Xbox version, but I assume it'd be the same. Um, if you compare visually um, the remastered version of 1 to the remastered version of 0, um, the remastered version of 0 looks a lot more crisp and better than the remake port of 1 does. Um, so, and it's because apparently they don't have their assets and stuff. Um, but apparently my battery's about to die, so I guess I should wrap this up. This video is very long, actually, anyways. Um, but yeah, that being said, I like them all, but they all have their ups and downs. Well, again, like I said, except for the original, or except for the first remake, that one doesn't have any downs at all. Um, they're all enjoyable to some extent. I guess I should say that, 'cause not everybody's gonna like all the games, of course. Um, so I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that fun kind of stuff. Tell your friends about me. I'd like to know your guys' favorite remake Resident Evil game. Until then, have a good day.